Greetings everyone, I'm Record the Second, and welcome to yet another video showcasing some of the features in the upcoming update for the Mob Twigs datapack for Minecraft 1.21.5, the Shrinkflation and Variation update, or version 1.1. This video specifically will be about all the new jockeys that are going to be showing up in this update, but there are a lot of other cool features. If you want to check them out, watch the previous videos, and there's going to be one more video after this one, so don't miss that when it comes out for the final features. But in this one, like I said, we're going to be looking at all the new jockeys. So I'm pretty sure these are all the passengers I have, and these are all the vehicles that I have. Now, not all of these spawn naturally. A lot of these can happen naturally. For example, you all know about the spider jockey, but sometimes... Oh, that's ironic, isn't it? There we go. So you just saw that happen. Sometimes they will hop on to another mob. It's very specific. It'll check in the 2-block radius of it every second if there is a viable mob that it can use as a vehicle, and there's a 10% chance that it'll hop onto that mob. So it's not going to be as rare seeing these anymore, and there are a lot of combinations that can happen. For example, as you can tell, this one is named adult spider, and that's because baby spiders cannot be used as vehicles. It's only adult spiders. So now let's go over all of the possible jockeys that you can find in the game now. Okay, so creepers, they can now also be spider jockeys, as you can just see right here. But also, as you know from one of the previous videos, if you watch them, we now have baby creepers and baby spiders. Those are interesting. So we have a baby creeper here, and it can also ride a spider. But interestingly, another possible vehicle that the baby creeper can get is a cave spider. So sometimes they don't want to cooperate, and it takes a while for them to hop on because it's all randomized, but there you go. Fortunately though, cave spiders are pretty slow. I'll talk about that and other nerfs in the next video, but that's all you need to know for now. So this spider, this baby, can hop on to an adult if possible. As you can see, these can also mount spiders, and interestingly, you can also get baby spiders to ride cave spiders. So there's a whole combination that's possible. And what I forgot to mention earlier is that you can have cave spiders become riders of normal spiders. Okay, and as you can see here, this is also a possible combination, but we can go further and we can get an adult spider, and there you go. It's kind of rare to see this exact formation, especially because cave spiders are not that common in the game, although I did make them common. I'll get into that more later, but those are just some of the cool combinations you can now see in the game, which I think adds a lot to the world. And of course, skeletons could also become spider jockeys if this wasn't in the way. Forgot to mention earlier that they will not ride a vehicle mob if it already has a passenger. You've already seen the skeletons, but strays and bogged also can do the same thing. But there are also more vehicles that they can ride. For example, you have some passive mobs. So in most cases, the vehicles have to be adults, but not in all cases. And we'll get to the other cases later. Sometimes you have to wait, but there you go. And this applies not just to sheep, but also to cows and pigs. But remember, as long as they are adults. And also, interestingly, it applies to skeleton horses. The skeletons, bogged, and strays will attempt to ride it sometimes, as you can see here. Alright, and I mentioned before that most vehicles are adults, but there are some exceptions. For example, if you get a baby skeleton mob, it can potentially mount a baby skeleton horse if you have that in your world. Alright, that was not easy, but as you can see, this is a possible combination. And also, these babies can hop on top of a cave spider too, which is pretty cute when you see it happen. Yes, that's another combination that you can find. These are gonna be quite rare. You might be able to just nudge them into a corner and capture these mobs yourself just to get these jockeys and then name tag them for some kind of collection or zoo. These are possible to still encounter naturally, and that just makes survival more interesting in my opinion. Here's another jockey that you can only see with strays. They are the only mobs that can sometimes hop on to a polar bear. And something important to mention that I didn't mention before is if they hop on top of a passive mob, they will no longer despawn, which is fine because if a passive mob already has a passenger, and since passive mobs don't really respawn, this will not become a lag issue. Although if you do encounter something like that after the update, let me know. But from what I know, this shouldn't really be a problem, especially with some of these mobs. For example, you have a normal skeleton which can also hop onto boats, and those will just eventually burn in the sunlight. So I don't think it's going to be an issue, but everything is possible. And let me know if you encounter that kind of problem post-release. Okay, now let's get into some naturally spawning jockeys for a little bit, because I've replaced these jockeys with the cave spider jockey, and another one is the drowned jockey. So if you've ever seen chickens just floating in the ocean, it's because there's a drowned jockey. Because if chickens have a passenger and they're underwater, the passenger will automatically dismount, so you will just have the chicken float upwards. So instead of that, I'll now replace this jockey with a salmon jockey. These only can be large salmon, these cannot be medium or small. Also, you can now see this combination. I got water breathing again next video, but there's a chance for them to become jockeys of adult turtles, and none of the passive jockeys spawn naturally. And yes, these can also hop on to a large salmon, and even though these mobs are passive mobs, they are in their own mob cap of fish mobs, so they do not actually cause the same issues. They will actually despawn similarly to hostile mobs, so this is not going to cause issues in your world in terms of performance. One more thing I forgot to mention is that drowns do not have to be babies to be able to mount turtles, so adult drowned can also do it. And also this jockey is possible as well, and also baby skeleton horses can be mounted by baby drowns, similarly to what I showed before with the baby skeleton variants. So now let's talk about the zombie variants, and they work similarly to the skeletons, except they mount zombie horses instead of skeleton horses. Baby mobs, they will mount adults in some cases, and they don't have to be the same mob type. Baby zombie villager can ride a husk, and a baby husk can ride an adult zombie, and a baby zombie can ride a husk. And this works the same way with drowned as well. They're also in that pool of mobs. That's possible now, on top of the baby zombie horse and a cave spider, but only for baby mobs. Here's, for example, what I mentioned before. And yes, just wanted to show you these possible combinations before we go to the Nether and see the last possible jockeys. And almost forgot to mention that evokers, vindicators, pillagers, illusioners, and witches can all mount, as you can see, a ravager. Last but not least, we have the Nether jockeys, which can be on top of adult hoglins only, so skeletons and wither skeletons. Also, to clarify, this does not apply to strays or bogged. And there's one more jockey I want to show you, and this one might be my favorite. There we go. So there's a skeleton blaze jockey. I know it looks a little bit ridiculous. You'll see what I mean when I say this is one of the coolest jockeys around, because this jockey can actually do something that the blazes cannot. But to be more specific, the skeleton is using the blaze to fly towards me. Blazes can only fly up and down, and they can kind of fly on the ground, but they cannot do it in air because what they're actually doing is walking. The blaze itself kind of loses control, so the blaze isn't even shooting fireballs at you, it's just the skeleton, so it's not even that overpowered at all. Okay, so as you can see here, the skeleton is using the blaze to fly towards me, and it's one of the few mobs in the game that can actually fly this well. It's unlike any other mob in the game. I think this is better at flying than the Vex and the Phantom. Now, before I end the video, I want to mention which of these jockeys can spawn naturally. Baby spiders and cave spiders on top of spiders are actual jockeys that can spawn naturally, as well as creeper jockeys on top of spiders. You can also see baby spiders riding cave spiders naturally, and the skeleton blaze jockey that I showed off can also spawn naturally. And similarly to vanilla jockeys, so for example, spider jockeys can spawn from spiders. If you use a spawn egg or a spawner, it's going to apply the same logic to these as well. So for example, if you have a cave spider jockey, it has to spawn from a cave spider. I hope you guys enjoy the showcase, and like I said, there's one more coming with all the final features of this update. So new mob drops, specific nerfs and buffs, and a couple other features. And then eventually the update will come out. I don't know exactly when. I need to port it to 1.21.5 first. So don't forget to smash subscribe, ring my bell, and as always, stay